All right, today on the Tom Kelly Show, my friend Steve Berger, who, how do we promote you? Why are you worth listening to?
I'm interesting.
There you go. He's sidekicking today, and it's me talking about random stuff. And, I'm going viral on Instagram, just not on my account. Let's start the show.
The Tom Kelly Show. Everybody.
I want you to sing it, Steve.
Tom Kelly Show.
Oh, come on, Steve. You're not even trying.
Tom Kelly Show.
Oh, you know what? I'm playing Keith on the train just for you, and you're not even trying. All right.
I tried.
Trigger warning, spoiler alert. Well, at least we tried. You are experiencing a random episode of the Tom Kelly Show. Steve is up here in my apartment. Steve and I have known each other, God, for 25 years?
More.
1995. So that's 28 years. Woo. Tell them, okay, let's actually, you know what? Can we tell these stories?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay.
They're always good.
All right, you know what? By the way, I have an intro that I wrote out that I never ever read. This is the podcast where one comedian, Tom Kelly, me, owns the midlife crisis. I'm known for my work at The View, Good Morning America, America's Got Talent, and a million other shows. I'm a man in transition looking for what's next. And this is a podcast that seeks life advice while giving out unsolicited opinions. And why not? Let's go down memory lane for a minute.
Memory lane.
So you guys know me. Actually, the intro works. You know me from all the big shows I've worked at. You know me from working at The View and Good Morning America, America's Got Talent. Maybe some of you know me from my own stand-up and social media work, and maybe some of you are just people I have bothered while on the train. But Steve knows me from when we worked at an advertising company together.
When he was my intern. Well, not my intern.
I was the intern. I was not your intern.
I didn't have an intern.
Yeah, but where were we working? Oh, should we name names? No, we should probably.
Oh, come on.
From here on in, no more names because, and I'm going to tell you why. Because I think we got to go down the road of how the whole place fell apart, right? Can we do the paycheck story? Have we done the paycheck story?
Paycheck story is the best one.
Paycheck story is the best one.
And the casino story.
Oh, God. Okay. So we worked at an advertising company.
It's a production company.
An advertising and production company. On Long Island, working for a man who I considered to be a genius, who taught me a lot of things in life. And I want to say his name, but I feel like we're going to tell stories about him that may not be flattering. But they might be flattering.
It might be. He'd probably enjoy it. He'd enjoy anybody talking to him. He
was the most colorful guy I've ever worked for. He was a Persian man, right? He was Iranian. Yep. And I think he got out of Iran before the revolution.
Yes, he was here in college during the whole hostage crisis, I believe.
Okay.
I believe he got a lot of crap for being Iranian at that time.
Okay. So the interesting thing with him was he made his fortune doing very, very high-end wedding videos.
Yes.
At one point. And he was, again, remember, folks, we're spoiled. We're look, hold up your phone. Nowadays, we have a $1 billion camera and you can get images out to people in an instant. And then we sort of forget about the 1980s and 70s where if you had a lot of money and you were doing a big Long Island wedding, everybody got the photographer, but not everybody paid for the video. And he did. I worked with him on one shoot, movie quality wedding videos.
And fully edited like a real production.
Yes. And I went with him on one shoot that he had to do as a favor after he retired from wedding videos. But the guy made so much money in wedding videos that he took the money and opened a production and advertising company. And the man was a genius. The man was in the Steve, tell him your line. He was the only Steve's line. I'm going to do Steve's joke better.
The only one in the internet in 1995 who didn't make $1 billion.
Yes.
We were making a portal before there was even such thing as a portal. We had deals with Sony. We had deals with all these companies.
He had a vision for Amazon that was better than Amazon could do today. That's the sad part. Is he would have been great. He had meta vision in dial-up.
Yes.
The age of dial-up. Yeah. He had the idea for a mall that you can walk through virtually and whatnot. But I'm skipping to the middle of the story. Beginning of the story was he was a genius, and he was using tools in local commercials that other people weren't. And you were one of the first ever graphic artists in local.
I was doing CG art, CG animation for local companies. Can we name the big one? Or
Yeah, why not? PC
we did
Richard.
all the old PC Richard commercials when we were doing CG animation, and nobody at that level was doing CG animation. He bought the equipment that was way overpriced at the time for the level of production company was. He paid people way too much.
But he got great talent. There was great talent in that room.
Right. People would last either 3 years or 2 days. Because he was an asshole.
Okay, now you're being really strong. But he was.
He could be harsh, and if you didn't know how to deal with him.
In the age of cancellation, you're right, he would not survive now.
Yeah. So people quit after 2 days.
Yeah.
Or would stay there for 3-4 years because he paid way too much.
So let's pause and let me tell my part of the story because it's my midlife crisis. I was at an age where in college, I went to this, nice big college, Quinnipiac University, which at the time had just started its communications programs. And they didn't have big showbiz connections. If you wanted an internship, you were pretty much on your own. And a friend of mine who I have not seen ever pop up on Facebook, a woman who worked at New York Tech, Kelly McCann, Kellie McCann, red-haired. She worked at my TV summer camp. At one point, I called her up to say hi, and she's like, Tom, I saw on a bulletin board a job ad you might like for an advertising company in the North Shore of Long Island. And I called the number cold, and I think I mailed them a resume and went for an interview, and they said, you know what? We need a PA tomorrow. Just show up. And now, if you think I'm shy now, and at times, do you think I'm shy?
No.
At times, no? You didn't think
now? No.
Okay. So I was kind of shy and very mousy at times. And the first shoot ever was at a Harley Davidson dealership. Okay?
I remember that one.
Okay. I drove there in a hurricane of some sort. And I got there and everybody else on the production was late. And the owner of the Harley dealership, who looked like a man who would own a Harley dealership with Hell's Angels money, at least in my mind, at least again, in my very sheepish 18-and-a-half-year-old mind, he's like, well, the guy you work for is an a-hole. You're this, you're that. What's the professionalism? I'm like, it's my first day. I just got here. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And God bless this guy who owned the place, the guy we worked for, came in with his Iranian charm. And again, the thin line between sexual harassment and charm. Hey, Bobby.
Oh, there was no thin line with him.
Well,
he crossed that line.
But people. Yes. But there was a
different
thin
time.
Okay, one, it was a different time, but there was two. There was a thin line with whether or not people would accept it. Because I'll tell you something. He came in. And I fell in love with him for a few minutes, And then I think I went out in a hurricane to get the food order, and I didn't come back with napkins. And he's like, oh, you are the intern. And he gave me a 20-minute speech on if you bring the food, people will like you. But you know who they hate? They will remember you and hate you if you screw up. And I'm kind of... I may sound racist doing the accent, but it was like that intensity. And working with the guy, I learned some of the best lessons ever. But there was also this thing of, because he was a mom and pop business, and I guess because he liked to take trips to Atlantic City. Do you want to tell the story, or should we skip it?
Atlantic City, he went to Atlantic City a lot.
Yeah. So when you have a boss and you're working in New York, especially in the 90s, and they go to Atlantic City a lot, that could be a good thing and a fun thing. And it could be a scary thing for people who work.
Are we going to say his name?
Let's call him M.
M. So one day I come in and don't see M around, so I asked the receptionist. She's like, where's M? And he's like, he's in Atlantic City trying to make payroll. Because he paid people a lot and didn't always make a lot. So every payday, everyone would run to the bank as soon as they got their paychecks, because if you were the last one there, your check might not clear.
Now, to be fair, I worked there in the summers. I never had a check not clear. But what was cute was the woman who was the gorgeous secretary at the time. I was in love with there were two gorgeous secretaries there, Stacy and Bonnie.
Stacy and Bonnie.
Yes. Well, actually don't anymore. They're probably married kids, and I'm sure they both married rich men. They were smart, they were sweet, and one of them would give me my check first, so I had a 3-minute head start on Friday. But what would be funny was they would walk around, again, this is the days of before direct deposit, they would walk around and hand each person their printed check, and you would just, if you didn't, there would be a moment where you would just hear all the cars starting in the parking lot. And I don't think I knew that at one point. And I just remember one summer, just everybody, where did everybody go? They're cashing their checks. And then someone told me the story about, well, they don't always clear, Tom. And I'm like, run! But I learned so much working for the guy.
The work ethic. You learned work ethic from him, if anything else.
You worked 36 hours because he was also there with you working for 36 hours straight.
And you work and get it right.
And there was a high from doing it right with him.
Yes.
And he had an eye. Again, this man had a Hollywood level eye that he was applying to local silly commercials. Even the weddings. Like I remember the weddings. First of all, he was known from the wedding circuit. He was known for being a pain in the ass because he would bring the professional equipment and the people who ran the hall didn't want him bringing a 1K light because it was ruining the lighting of the hall. And so he, I guess, had a combative yet charming relationship with them. But I remember on the live wedding shoot, he gave a speech and the man smoked, cigarette in hand. And the speech was something I've retold on multiple occasions. Bubby, your first wedding. You need to know, they only say I do once. They only break the glass once. They only cut the cake once. And that was just such a great speech to bring to any news shooting I ever did. Like there's no, hey guys, I forgot to hit the record button. Could you start that again? And what a great speech for if you're in a high pressure job. You know, they only say I do once. They only cut the cake once. They only throw the rice once. Though nowadays they don't throw the rice. I have told the audience my negotiating story with him. I loved video editing with him. I was editing on a computer when the computer cost $200,000. You know, it was called an IMMIX Video Cube or Stratosphere. No, it was the Stratosphere. I was on an IMMIX Stratosphere, and I was also doing some tape-to-tape editing where the way they would have the editing room set up is we would be here, and then he would be at a table above you, looking down on you, looking down on the servant of the editor. It was like the producer and client row, and he would be sitting there smoking cigarettes over your head when he knew cigarette smoking made me sneeze, and it was probably illegal at that point to smoke in an office and drink.
Smoking and drinking.
And again, but also generally charming the client.
Yep.
And the summer before I started as an NBC page, and you have to understand the leap I took to have the career I have, and the moments where, even like the moment I'm in now, where you don't know what things will work and what won't. I had a guaranteed job working for him he was throwing the number of 40 to 50 grand a year. Whether or not he was serious or not, I'll never know.
Probably. And
I was a decent video editor. I enjoyed playing with the icons and stuff, and I still do it now with this podcast. Anyway, I remember I was on standby. They were all mad I took the Conan O'Brien internship. Oh, you're a big shot at NBC. You can't work for us now.
And wasn't he mad that you took a free job? You're leaving a paid job.
I left a paid job for a free job.
That drove him crazy.
And he wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong and I was learning stuff with and getting coffee at Conan O'Brien, hoping to make connections. And it took a while for those connections to pay off, a long while. Then the next one he was like kind of busting chops about was I got a job as an NBC tour guide. I made the list to make it into the page program, but the problem was you never knew when they were going to call. So I call up. Oh, I'm saying his name. I'm going to have to bleep the name, but I called the boss up. I called M up and I said, I need a job working with you at, actually, I want to tell, this is going to be a brilliant story about knowing your worth. So I had to negotiate a boss when I was just getting out of college. And I said to him, I need a job for the summer until I get a job working for NBC. And then he's like, well, all right, I'll hire you for the summer. What is NBC paying you? And I said, well, they're paying me $15 an hour. And the boss was like, well, I'm no NBC. I can't pay you $15 an hour. I will pay you $12.50. And I said, deal. I shook hands. We went on with the day, and everybody was so happy I was going to be working at the company. They took me out for drinks that night, and he gets a few drinks in him. He's drunk, and he's like, Tom, my boy, you should have told me NBC was paying you $20 an hour, and I would have given you that 15. And I looked at him, and I said, that's okay. I'm only making 10.
Nice.
And he was mad. He's like, how could you lie to me? How could you this? How could you that? And there are two lessons in that story as we talk about knowing your worth and owning the midlife crisis or whatever. Knowing your worth is I exaggerated my self-worth by saying I was only worth $15 to get more than what I was actually worth at $12.50. But could you imagine if I believed I was worth 20, I would have made 1.5 times what I was actually worth. Take that story and do what you will with it. What do you remember about me when I first started in those early days?
Well, you mentioned it before that you were shy. I remember, I don't know when you started or if you were just talking about doing it, but I was so surprised when I found out you were a stand-up comedian. Or
really?
That you would go on stage because you were this little shy guy. You weren't particularly funny around the office. Like, you weren't on.
Yeah, I wasn't on.
Yeah, you weren't on. So the first time I found that out, I was very shocked.
And you know what's funny? I got very mad at our boss a couple of times. Because there were, again, you talk about the highs and the lows. There was a low point after Rosie O'Donnell ended where I was just doing stand-up and looking for work where I could find work. And I don't know if I ever asked for a full-time job with them, but I was taking freelance days here, days there as a PA. And they're like, Tom, you could be a PA on a shoot with us this Tuesday, whatever the day is. And I go in, and it turned out it was all Long Island stand-up comedians acting for $1,000 a day, and I was there for $10 an hour, or $12.50 an hour, and I was humiliated at that point. I was humiliated. And you talk about not being seen as a comedian. You're right, I guess. And, our bosses didn't hire me to be a comedian in that shoot. And it would have been a career high for me at that point. And the good news is none of the comedians from that shoot went anywhere that I'm jealous of. But I don't know if I handled that moment with class either. I was definitely the angry production assistant that day.
I would bet.
And I guess you're right. I never really created an appearance of, hey guys, I'm on. And I don't know if you have to be on in the office when you're editing video.
And you'd probably be pretty annoying if you were.
Thanll you. Okay, good.
Yeah,
all right.
You don't want the guy who's on all the time.
Now, you were very nice to me. And I admired you when we were young. And I was substantially younger. Just want to get that in.
Thanks.
But I guess I was 18 and you were 26 or 27. That's about. And I just remember thinking, a 27-year-old, so cool. He's got everything. And you were creatively ahead of the curve on certain things. Like you would do bar crawls. What was it? The Bert's bar crawl?
Bert's bar hop.
Who's Bert? Who was Bert?
My friend Rob. We had like 5 friends Rob, so they all became nicknames. So he got Bert because he hated it.
Okay.
So he's known to this day as Bert.
And you had a very popular bar crawl in his name.
He's my gay friend. He wasn't gay at the time.
Or he probably was gay and didn't tell you? Or
he was closeted at the time. We all knew.
Did we all know?
Oh yeah, everybody knew.
Because it's always fun for me to see.
Oh no, he's very gay.
Very gay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And he
Was
always
not a surprise.
Yeah, was no surprise to anybody.
Okay.
And he was the party guy. He was the popular guy. So we named the
bar crawl after
bar crawl
him.
after him.
It's funny. Gosh, I don't want to take it down that
And
road.
we had 400 or 500 people
But you're
at the max.
And your graphics, and again, this is the age of advertising on posters. Your posters were the most well-produced bar crawl posters in history at the time.
Yes, and we had pins for all the participants. And he never wanted to call it Bert's Bar Hop.
What did he want to call it?
We didn't have a name, but because he didn't like the nickname Bert. So at the time, early web, do you remember a website called Bert is Evil?
Yes.
It was all pictures of Bert from Sesame Street.
Was that you?
In various like mugshots with Osama bin Laden, all these. So we said, okay, we'll use the mugshot of Bert from Sesame Street to put on the pin. So it's not you, Bert. So then every year I made a different movie poster with Bert's
With
head
Angry
on
Bert.
it for that year's pin.
And yeah,
We did The Sixth Sense, and the tagline was "I see drunk people." So we always came up with something clever each time.
So you were so cutting edge back in the day, and I don't know if this is a conversation to have or a scary one to have. I am afraid this is almost a whole other podcast to have about AI. I'm afraid of it. Are you afraid of it?
Yes.
Should we
no.
Do you have 20 minutes worth of content about it?
I think I could probably come up with 20 minutes of content on AI.
All right, then you know what? We're going to have a third separate conversation in a minute on next week's show. Folks, I'm going to spread these shows out, or maybe we already had our AI conversation and this is an evergreen show. We'll never know for sure. But for right now...
AI knows.
The AI will be able to know if we've aged by checking the video. All right, folks, you know what to do. Actually, an AI show would be good for me. Folks, you know what to do. Show love where love can be shown. Comment. Share this with a friend who might like it. And let us know what you think of the show. It's all blah, blah, blah. Tom Kelly Show. Magic Mirror, we see Don LaGreca. A man who was very good to me, intensely so, and taught me so much from age 18 to 21. You're one guy who never popped up on Facebook, and if you happen to be stalking me somewhere, I see you.
And one more. Krishna Ramnath.
Krishna, I was going to do Krishna. Krishna Ramnath taught me a lot about editing, and Krishna, when you got a better job, that led to me making a lot more money off of our old boss. So...
And... The boss,
you know what? The boss, I hope these stories weren't bad stories. I was afraid to name them, all of them, because they were a little more colorful. But yeah, right? You're grateful to them?
Yep.
I am too.
Yeah, no, it was a love-hate relationship, but I learned a lot about the business and, like I said, more work ethic.
Yeah, for me, it was more love than hate, but it was definitely love/exhaustion. And I'm grateful to you too, man. I'm using stuff I learned from you today. And instead of doing it for big money with a production company on Long Island, I'm doing it alone in my apartment. So I think I'm a success story. Good night, New York.